I am asking you to define what are the things you need in order to stay
You're
healthy.
listening to the Simply Strategic Ministry podcast. Our goal is to help you grow your ministry through simple strategies and scalable systems.
Welcome to the Simply Strategic Ministry podcast, where our goal is to help church leaders grow their ministries through simple strategies and scalable systems. My name is Landon Reynolds. I'm going to be hosting today's podcast, and today is part 2 of an episode that we titled How to Build a Rule of Life, which is all about strategic self-leadership. And so today we're going to discuss some of the very practical parts of building your rule of life to help guide you as you lead yourself. And so if you're just joining us, be sure you're going back and you're listening or you're watching. You're going back and checking out part 1 because we really do kind of unpack some of the foundational pieces. And so, but before we get started, there's 2 things I do want to remind you of. One thing we're going to be referencing so often throughout this podcast is what's called our year-end reset. And so what the year-end reset, what I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to actually create your self-leadership system, your rule of life. And to help you with this, I've created this digital rule of life journal called the year-end reset. And it's a place where you can literally go in and read instructions and actually journal and look how you are going to build your rule of life. And so you can get that for free. You can visit simplystrategicministry.com/content for access to that, or you can click this in the show notes, and that'll take you to a place where you can download that as well. And the second thing, like I said in the last episode, we are going to really try to invest a whole lot more into this podcast in the upcoming season. So if you could please subscribe, review, do all the things to help us get this content out to more strategic leaders. I know you hear that all the time, but it really does help, and it really does help us get the word out to other people so that we can build together as a leadership community. So let's now jump into our conversation on strategic self-leadership. So in part 1 of our podcast, we reminded you of a really foundational truth, and it's that you were a part of every good and bad decision that you made. And so if you look back at your previous year, all your highs, all your lows, the truth is you were a part of every single one of them. In fact, you were probably the driving, deciding factor behind that decision was you. And so if that's true, if you and I, depending on the decisions that we made, were a part of them and were the driving, deciding factor behind them, then that means the most important person that you can lead is not your ministry. It's not leading up to your pastor. It's not your spouse. It's not your kids. It's not anybody else except you. You are the most important person that you will ever lead. And so with that in mind, what we've said is our bottom line in part 1 was that you must know yourself to lead yourself. But we didn't just stop there, because the goal is not to just lead ourselves. The goal is that we want to make an impact in the world. That's why you're listening to this podcast. That's why you're a part of our leadership community, is because you want to figure out how to either make more disciples, or how to bring more glory to God, or how to grow your church, or how to see more people come to faith in Him. And so we know that you must know yourself to lead yourself so that you can lead beyond yourself. We all want to lead beyond ourselves, but we cannot do that until we first have created a system to lead ourselves. So the question then becomes, is how do we lead ourselves? And this was kind of the reminder from part 1, is that this is where the rule of life comes into play. The rule of life is an essential leadership system that you need in order to achieve your goals, to stay healthy, and of course, to make a conscious plan to keep God at the center of everything that you do. It is the leader's operating system towards your calling as being a strategic leader. So in our last conversation, I began walking you through a practice that we called the year-end reset. And this is where I take time at the beginning of either at the end of December or the beginning of January to reevaluate my life, to set goals, to intentionally make plans for the upcoming year. And I can honestly say, this has been one of the most beneficial and transformational processes I've done. I've done a version of this for really almost the past 10 years, but I've really kind of formalized it into this process that I want you to have. And you can get that on our website, or you can get it in the show notes, but we're going to reference it a ton. And so in this thing, though, we really break it down into 4 unique parts. And step one of the four unique process, or the four unique parts of the year in reset. Step one is you're going to want to retreat to hear from God. Step two is you're going to reflect on your previous year. Step three is you're going to rebuild your rule of life. And step four is you're going to review in community. So in part one, we recovered all about the retreat and reflect phase of the year in reset. And now I want to get super practical and dive into part three and part four. But to do that, I actually want to share my screen with you and actually walk through the year in reset and my rule of life. So let's share my screen and let's go in and let's figure out how to build this together. Okay, so now that I'm sharing my screen with you, I really want to walk you through what the year in reset looks like and actually talk about part three and part four by sharing an example of how I built mine. And so here, as you'll see, this is a Notion document. It's where our year-end reset is currently stored. And so I want to walk you through this. And so basically, as you get access to this, you'll see that I've actually listed for you an example of my personal rule of life. Now, of course, I've edited out some sensitive information that I don't necessarily want shared on the internet, but you'll get the gist of like how this actually works. And so we've already done step one. We've already done step two, and now we're going to jump into step three. Now, at the time of recording this, I got a little bit of a cough, so I'm going to be using my quality 1995 Disney mug here to keep some tea flowing, because if not, I'm going to cough my way through this, which is not going to be fun for you as a listener. But to jump in here, let's look at step three. So this is where in step three, we are going to rebuild our rule of life. And so I've already gone through this John Mark Comer, great definition of it, but basically your rule of life is your set of schedules, practices, and relational rhythms that help us create space in our busy world to be with Jesus and become like Jesus and do what he did. So I've attached all kinds of resources about what a rule of life is. But basically, there are 5 different rules that I use, okay? And so rule number 1 is the need chart. So the need chart is, and Leanna and I, my wife Leanna and I, we established this about 3 or 4 years ago because we had kids and our life had changed and had really adjusted. And we were struggling just to figure out how to take care of kids, to take care of ourselves, to lead a growing ministry. And we were just experiencing a lot of tension, honestly, between our marriage and tension in our church, and just and we would just need to figure it out. And so I had gotten to a place, and I share this in other places, but I'd gotten to a place where I really got extremely unhealthy. I gained a lot of weight. I got honestly depressed. And this need chart was one of the things that helped pull me out of some of like a dark night of the soul. Because what we kind of learned is like there's a difference between a want and a need. And I think what you need to do in your marriage, in your ministry, in your own personal health, like you have to determine what are the things that I want and what are the things I need. Like for me, I don't want a vacation. I need vacations in my life. Like I have a high level of like adventure. Like I have a high quota that needs to be met for adventure and travel. And so like I don't need to go to Disney every year, and I don't need to but I do need to be able to step away and vacation. I want to go to Disney every year. I want to do some of these trips, but I don't need to. And so, but what we're defining is what are the things that you have to fight for in order to get done. And it's those things that you have to prioritize and put on this need chart. So let me begin to walk you through some of these things. So the first things is after you've reflected on your life, what are some things that we need to start and stop? And so these are my personal categories I've created. Now you can create your own categories. You may not run a business. You may not even be in ministry. But for me, these are the big categories. I look at my self-leadership. I look at my finances. I look at my spiritual rhythms. I look at martial arts because I'm a martial artist. I do kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, a big part of my life. I look at family, health, business, and ministry. So these are my areas. And basically what I'm doing is I'm taking all this data that I've reflected on from my retreat and reflection steps, and I'm kind of mining this down into, okay, what were some unhealthy things I did in the past year that I need to stop, start, or keep doing? So for example, like in self-leadership for me, I need to stop doing mindless media. Okay, I got to stop just scrolling TikTok and Instagram, and for me, the place that I get caught is on Twitter or X. I need to stop just mindlessly doing things. I need to use those for the glory of God. I need to keep scheduling time with my friends. I can't just expect that I'm going to have good relational time with my friends. I need to schedule that. And then I need to start reading more. I used to read a ton. Last year, I kind of took the year off. But I need to get back to that kind of 25 books a year. And so what are the things that you need to start and stop? You can do those by category. And the next thing, and this is, man, this was really helpful for us, is what are the regular things that you need in order to be healthy? Okay, so like a plant needs regular sunlight. A plant needs regular watering. Like a plant needs to be pruned. These are not like, oh, I just really want a drink of water if you're trying to like get a plant to grow. It's like, no, these are the things it has to happen in order for that plant to live. And so I am asking you to define what are the things you need in order to stay healthy. These are not things you want. These are not desires you have. These are not dreams and ideas. These are like my base level needs must be met. Come heck or high water. I can't believe I just said that, man. I'm such a nerdy Christian right now. But like no matter what happens in life, these are the things that's got to be met. And so I break it down into daily needs, weekly needs, monthly needs, quarterly needs, and yearly needs. So for me, daily, I know I need to drink a gallon of water. All right, I got my Bicco water bottle right here. I need to work out every day. I need a quiet time with Jesus. I need to have a little bit of time of taking a walk in between meetings to pray and reflect. I need no social media until after I'm done with my morning routine, which is spending time with Jesus. I know I need time with my kids every single day. I can't go a day without spending some time with them. And I need to connect with my wife, whether that is through just talking, whether that's through having dinner, watching a show, or just being relational with one another. We need some sort of connection piece. These are my daily needs. I've defined my weekly needs. Like every week, I know I need a date night with my wife. I know I need to connect with a friend. I know I need some sort of competitive outlet. I know that I need a Sabbath. I know I need to sit in the sauna for 60 minutes. I've defined my needs on a weekly basis, and now I'm able to say, okay, this is what's got to happen in my life. This is how I got a calendar and schedule myself. And monthly needs or quarterly needs or yearly needs, like yearly needs for me is I know I need about 10 days off. I need 2 or 3 days just to kind of get into vacation mode, and then I need a week of vacation. I usually take those in September. I need a group of guys I'm discipling every single year. I can never go a year without having a group of individuals I'm personally discipling. So what are your needs? Define those. Write them down and then fight for them. Like put them on your calendar. Put them in your schedule and fight for it. The second rule, the second rule is what are your routines, rituals, and rhythms, okay? Let me tell you the difference here. Daily routines these are things I'm doing every single day. It's just like, this is my routine. A weekly ritual is like, okay, on Wednesdays, I try to do this. So a weekly ritual in our family, we go to church on Sunday. That's a ritual for us. It's not something we have to think about. It's just what we do. Thing is yearly rhythms. Like what's your rhythm for a year? Do you have seasons where you're go, go, go? Do you have seasons where you're slow? You need to define those rhythms for yourself. So for me, this is what it looks like. Like daily, I have AM routines. I wake up, I drink water, I pray, I read my Bible, I pray again, 4 different people, 4 different things. I journal, I create a high priority list, and then I get to work. I'm usually doing that at 4:30 to 5 a.m. That's where I'm getting started. My weekly rituals, like I know this. On Mondays, we try to do a big family dinner. It's big family dinner night. Or Friday, we try to do a family game night or a movie night. These are just our weekly rituals. And then yearly rhythms. Yearly rhythms, I know that, for example, I know in September, I'm going to try to go to Disney, okay? Because, again, I love Disney. 90s Disney mug. I'm a Disney dad. I love going there. So I know I try to get one on the calendar. I try to figure out how to make that happen every September. What are those for you? Okay, we know that in February we remember our child that passed away named Aiden. that passed away through a miscarriage, and we try to take time to honor that life, even though that life isn't with us anymore. Like these are the yearly rhythms that we're trying to engage in, just to again try to align ourselves towards what God is calling us to do. So we have our need chart, we have our routines, rituals, and rhythms. I want you to write those down. I want you to figure out what those are for yourself, and then you can create what is called your ideal week, okay? And here's how you create your ideal week. You use the data from the things that you need regularly on a daily, monthly, weekly, quarterly, yearly basis, and you also take your routines, rituals, and rhythms, and you take all of that data points and you put them on the calendar, okay? This is where it takes a lot of work. But if you have something that you want to do, but you have not put a space to do it on the calendar, that is not a goal. That is not a plan. That is a dream still. And I love dreaming, but I love executing the ideas that I have too. The ideal week is where you are building what is the ideal way that you operate. Now, there are a lot of other people who have spoken on the ideal week, Michael Hyatt being one of them, that I don't need to cover here. But basically for me, I go in and I build out what my calendar will look like. I build out what my calendar will look like on a weekly basis. So this for me, again, you have access to this Google Drive file that you can copy and paste for yourself. But I know that this is how I have to operate in order to stay healthy, in order to do these things. And so I literally go in and I begin to build out my ideal week. Now, this is not what your week's going to look like, because here's the deal. We all know that crisis has happened, meetings get scheduled that you're not in charge of, like your week's going to get thrown away. But what is kind of that rule that you bring yourself back to? That's what the ideal week does. It says, okay, in a perfect world, there's no sin, there's no crises, there's no crazy sports schedules for your kids. What does it ideally look like for me to be healthy? And so again, you're creating a rule for yourself to bend yourself back towards something. So that's the ideal week. The fourth thing is your prayer plan, okay? So based upon your own weaknesses, your own needs, your own visions, your own dreams, your own things that you feel like God's brought into your life, I create what's called a prayer plan. And my prayer plan is literally the way that I am I'm creating a rule for myself to say, hey, I'm creating a rule for myself to say, this is how I operate, this is how I pray, and these are the things I'm going to be praying for on a daily basis. So again, I've created this Google Drive file for you. I like to break it up into 3 categories. I pray for my family every day, I pray for my church every day, and I pray for some personal needs in my life. So I'm praying for favor, I'm praying for holiness, I'm praying for wisdom, I'm praying to be filled with the Spirit. I'm praying in the church, I'm praying for the people. God calls us to pray for laborers, so I'm praying for those things. Again, you can have visions, you can have dreams, you can have ideas, but until they're in a plan, until they're in a system, those things just probably aren't going to happen. So I like to create a prayer plan. This was modeled to me by my original youth pastor as a way to align myself towards who I want to be in my life. And then finally, I've done my need chart. I've done my routines, rituals, and rhythms. I've done my ideal week. I've done my prayer plan. I'm going to my New Year theme and goals. So I love to define a word for the year. And this is not like some charismatic prophetic word that I'm, declaring over my life. It's more of just a theme. It's more of just a vision plan. It's more of just something to remind myself of what I feel like God's calling me to do in this upcoming year. So at the time of recording this, I'm just at the beginning of planting a church. And so for me, my theme word is I want to build. I want to build a local church built on Jesus. I want to build a sustainable future that's built on Jesus. I want to build a family culture in my life that's built on Jesus. And so with that word in mind, I think it's helpful to get a word. I think it's helpful to theme yourself to say, all right, last year my word was health. And I can honestly say I'm in the healthiest place I've ever been in. Not because I made a word, but because I used a word to kind of help direct my habits and my practices for the year. So for me, it's build this year. So my goals are going to be kind of built around the idea of building. And I go in and I define with those categories, what are 3 goals that I have? So my goal is to read 25 books, to do a social media fasting plan, which is where I fast for 1 hour a day, one day a week from social media, 1 week a month, 1 month a year. I'm trying to follow that this year. I want to write an ebook this year. I know in my ministry, I want to prepare to launch by the end of the year. I want to hire an associate pastor. I want to create some community groups. I want to build. That's my theme, okay? So this is where the digital rule of life journal actually becomes like really, really helpful, because now you just go into the year and reset document and you begin to build your own out, and you begin to just fill this in, and you begin to align yourself towards who you want yourself in a direction. And that's so critical, because if you must know yourself to lead yourself if you want to lead beyond yourself. And this is the way to do it, which brings me to the next step, which is step 4. And step 4 is we need to review in community. So you have retreated, you've reflected, you've rebuilt, and right now it's super personal to you. And that's fine to be very personal to you, but remember, the way God intends us to grow is not alone. Like, we believe this, like we tell our people that all the time, like, you can't do life alone, but a lot of times we plan our lives alone. And we dream alone, and some of us like to go up on the mountaintop and hear from God, and then come back and bring it down and tell everybody what they're gonna do, without ever like having a step of like stopping and reviewing it with people to get feedback, and then also just to sharpen it, to make it better, and to allow you to externally process it with somebody else. And so the first thing, like, as you're reviewing in community, I think the first thing you got to do is you got to review with your spouse, or if you're not married, review it with a close friend. One way that me and my wife did it this year is we got a night away. We didn't travel far. We live in Knoxville, and so we went to downtown Knoxville. We got a hotel room. We went to dinner. We talked about our rules of life, and I got to review that with her. That was such an experience that allowed us to get on the same page. It allowed us to create a little buy-in in each other's lives, and to bring us closer, create more unity around those things. That's so important. Is you need to be each other's army, and so when you're reviewing that with a close friend or a spouse, that allows you two to kind of be in this together. The second thing I would just say is review it with a counselor and a coach. Now, remember, I just said the word "and." Now, many of us don't have a counselor or a coach. I think that would be a great goal for you, is to get one or the other. But I think even better goal would be for you to get both. A counselor reviews the past. A coach helps you look forward. And so one of the things that we do at SSM is we're not counseling you. Like, I am not a counselor, but I'm a good coach. I'm a coach who can come alongside and say, hey, I think if you tweak these few things, it's going to help you in the future. And so I think if you review it with a coach. Now, if you've never done a free coaching session with us, get a free coaching session with us. We can look over your rule of life together. We can create for you a game plan, how we can help you and help come alongside of your goals to speed you up in the process, to help you actually achieve those things. You need a coach. When you're doing things without a coach and when you're doing things without a counselor, you're just kind of walking through mud when really you could be running. You just need some people to kind of help you and show you the way and help build systems around you to be able to achieve those things. And so I would review it with a spouse, close friend, a coach, a counselor, maybe a spiritual director, and then who's a pastor or mentor in your life, like someone who's known you for a long time. Send it to them, review it with them, review in community. You cannot do life alone, and you cannot build a rule of life alone, or at least you shouldn't. That's a great way to lead yourself, is to lead yourself to community and accountability. So I really do, like, I know I've said it a lot, and I've been beating this drum for what feels like forever now, is I want to challenge you to create your self-leadership system. And I know you may not be listening to this in the middle of December or January or right at the beginning or the end of a year. But there is no better time to reset when you need a reset than now. Like, you can jump in and do this no matter where you're listening to this and start building that rule of life. Because the most important person you're going to ever lead in this upcoming year is you. And you need to know yourself so that you can lead yourself, so that you can lead beyond yourself. So get access to our digital rule of life journal, or visit the show notes to do that. You can get it at simplystrategicministry.com/content. You can get that resource. And if you do want to review it with a coach, go to simplystrategicministry.com/coaching and schedule a free session with us. Or you can jump in and we can do a whole year of coaching with you. We would love to do that. And so, as always, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing, liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, leaving a rating, sharing it with a friend, posting about it on social media. Thank you. It means the world to me. We put a lot of work into this just to try to help you grow your ministry through simple strategies and scalable systems. And that's what we're here to do. And so thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.